All right. Let's give this a go. See what we can figure out today. Ooh, if I can remember where I left off. We got a combat update here. So the thing here is to figure out how to fix the combat phase, really. Right now, the transition to combat scene isn't really doing much, but there is actually a function. And how is that implemented in here? It is currently commented out entirely. Right. So what needs to happen is we need a float called fade to combat. Maybe. And then here, transition to combat scene. This should be fade to combat plus equals 1f times current delta time. And then here, when we set this, we're not really going to set that to just combat phase. We're going to set this to fade to combat equals 0. And then here we're going to say if fade to combat is greater than 1f. And also we can say greater than or equals. Then we're going to say fade combat equals 1f and combat phase plus equals 1. And it's gonna be rather set combat phase plus 1. That's how it should be. And then the thing here is that we need to find the object, and then we need to double check, is fade actually completely unused? Because it seems to be. Yeah. This is where this is going to be a bit annoying. Actually, no. This is in update. So it should actually be this. But this is I don't think this is necessarily all relevant. Here I'm doing the fade manually in each object. But see, here's the thing, right? I still don't like this term permanent. It's not descriptive enough. But I don't want to do this. Oh, it's still cool. I don't know if I want to deactivate either. What does deactivate do? It's active to false. What does that do? Just trying to figure some stuff out, I suppose. This is for the main project, Legends of Terrestria. And I'm trying to set up the combat phases in a more structured manner. So now I'm trying to create a fade where units and objects that aren't meant to be in combat will fade out when we enter combat, and then when you exit combat, they should fade back in. And I had this set up before, but it worked differently. Because here, each object has a fade, which I both like and dislike, because the combat fade should be handled. I feel like there should be... Might be able to have two types of fades. We'll see. One thing at a time. But here, it's like... I don't really like handling it here. I'd rather handle it here. Like we say fade to combat. And then I want to say for LOT objects, object list count. If LOT object list I dot data module dot value dot permanent is false, then LOT object list I dot data dot fade, which apparently isn't a function or isn't a variable. It shouldn't necessarily need to have that. Yeah. So let's say here, when fade to combat is greater than 1. Then I have to do something like, if an object is not permanent, then it has to be deactivated. I assume. Because the shadows and stuff need to be disappeared. Something like that. And then in the LOT object, we don't want to do this at all. So we can just remove this. But then in render, render. Here I have something called combat dim. Right, I know what that is. That's for... when I do an action in combat, I darken the background and I darken the other objects. That's what combat dim is. So what we really need here is fade. Is it just called fade? Let's go take a look here. Object alpha is set by object alpha. That's not necessarily true. That should be main controller dot. It's in public. There we go. So now we have object alpha, which I don't like either. So I have object opacity, and that's based on the opacity and object alpha. So object alpha should be it's not used. So we go into this shader and we type in object alpha. Here I'm multiplying it by object alpha, which is fine. But what about object opacity? When does that come into play? In some random places. That's great. But object alpha here, I do want to rename that into like object combat alpha, maybe. Two occurrences. And then we rename this to combat alpha. Something like that should work. I think that might be okay. And then here we are in unit placement. But I don't think unit placement needs any update. unit placement. That's gonna... I hate how the... I hate how this system works here. I'm not sure if it's part of the editor. Unit selection window. Next button. I hate how this works. I hate having buttons that all have individual scripts, triggers, and shit. It's a nightmare. I hate it. I'd rather it was just like one script. Like the entire... I don't even know to which point I would like to separate it, but I feel like the unit placement window, that could be like one script, and all of the buttons and everything should be in that script, right? Like it shouldn't be like here I have a trigger and you know it inherits from window element, and each button has like its own script with its own trigger override that does something. And I hate it so much because it means that part of the main, like the mainline code, if you look at it like, you know, red threads through writing or whatever, if you follow the main thread, it's gonna go through the main script and then just through some fucking button script somewhere that's like impossible to figure out where it is unless you know where it is. It's just like, yeah, in this script here we are doing the next thing, and you just have to know that that's where it happens. And even then, it's like not actually doing it. Because I have the next button here, right? And what is it doing? It's doing unit placement next team button. So it is here in the main controller, actually. And then it's saying, if current team index, then it does init unit placement phase. It increments the placement phase. And then here it says set game mode combat, which isn't true. It should say set combat phase. Combat phase plus equals 1. No. Plus 1. And this one is a little tricky, because here we're not going to set game mode for exploration. We're actually going to set combat phase to combat phase dot transition from combat scene. We're not going to do set game mode, because that's going to happen from the combat phase. That's the end of it. And then there we're gonna say fade combat equals 1F, even though it already is set to 1F. But I'm gonna set it anyway. And then here in the transition from combat scene, we're gonna say fade to combat minus equals 1F times current delta time. And then we're gonna say if actually, let's just say if fade to combat is less than or equal to 0F, then fade to combat equals 0F. Exit combat mode, enter exploration mode, but we also have to say for LOT combat combat object list. We have that. If now we're gonna say well, sure, if LOT object list dot contains LOT combat object list I, then we're gonna say LOT object list dot remove LOT combat object list I. And then when that's done, we're gonna say for we're gonna say while LOT combat object list dot count is greater than 0. Then we're gonna say LOT combat object list dot 0 dot destroy OS. Combat main controller and combat. Exiting combat mode. Something like that. actually just need to do that. Like that, and then we just say LOT combat object this.clear. I think that should be good enough. Something like that. But what we also need to do here is we need to say yeah, this is where it's a little tricky. Because the idea we have object opacity, right? And then we have combat alpha. And that's gonna be faded to combat means that when we are faded to combat, we have full opacity. Otherwise, all right, so if Objects that are in combat, or specifically combat units, should fade out when we exit combat. And then when we enter combat, objects that are not flagged as permanent should fade out. And when we then exit combat after that, whatever units are in combat that aren't permanent should fade out, and the non-combat units should fade in again. That's what should happen. At least that's the baseline functionality that I want to implement here. But then I need a way to know that the object is a combat object. One way to do that is to check if it has a combat module at all. But I don't really like that method, because I haven't really decided how to handle some objects. For example, should the combat version of Rhea be the same as the exploration version? And if so, then exploration Rhea has no combat module. So you can't do that. But also, if the combat version of Rhea is the same as the exploration version, then I'd have to like move the object over and use that. So I don't think that's gonna be the solution. I think there's gonna have to be an exploration version, but that's easy to make. Like, all I need to do is just create some kind of flag that just says this is exploration version, and then just not add a combat module. It doesn't even matter if she has a combat module or not. It just takes up like slightly more memory. I just need to request a copy of Rhea. That's really it. And in that case, I suppose we could say that the data module is the indicator that it's a combat object. Because then I could just say that anything that is an exploration object never has a combat module. I think that's fine. Let's do that. In that case, let's say if combat module is not equal, if combat module equals null, then that's exploration. That means 1 F minus main controller state combat. Then it's gonna be main controller dot state combat, I think. But I'm not a huge fan of this either, to be honest. But I guess. Because this means that every object has to make this check every time, but I don't think I can really get away from that. It's like either that or I manually set it somewhere else and then the check has to be made somewhere else, so the check has to be made somewhere. Like that. But I also kind of want to do something like here. If that's what I want to do, then I kind of feel like I need a boolean that says combat mode. And then combat mode, this should be if combat mode, then else no. Now we set it to false by default. That way I don't have to change anything anywhere. We just have to add it to the unit placement code that it is in fact a combat unit. This is deprecated. We don't want that anymore. I'm not really sure what to put that as. Yeah, it's this modified position stuff that's a little... I reworked that and I haven't fully implemented it yet. And this... Ugh. It's one of these things where it doesn't really matter what I do. if you make some kind of real-time system, I feel like it makes, or it maybe even matters more that objects are more self-contained. And like they handle their own movement and whatnot. But in a turn-based scenario, it kind of doesn't matter. You know? Like whether the units themselves control their movement, or you just control their movement via a controller. It has like no real impact. Doesn't matter. Either way, you know, it doesn't really matter one way or the other, because you can always just do one way or the other. It doesn't really matter. So here, for example, I'm doing the movement here in movement execution. And it's only being done for the current turn unit. Whatever unit is the current turn. Which is fine. It's this that I'm not a fan of anymore. Or it's just so tedious. Because now I have a list of position modifiers instead, and now I have to do the thing I hate the most, which is doing an initialization. I hate initializing things. It's so tedious. And how should I handle this? Because this is movement execution. I might actually need another phase here. Maybe not. I'm not sure. No, because this is gonna go back to combat phase. Combat phase equals command input, so it's just gonna revert to that. Finalize move equals 1. Yeah, that allows us to press finalize move. I don't like that button, but it's one of those things where it's like there are problems. Like if you move if you allow me to move a character forward and there's line of sight, then I can just walk behind a corner and check what is behind the corner and then cancel the move, right? So either it's like I walk behind the corner into the dark and then it doesn't update or anything. Yeah, like that's the thing. So that's why I did what I did, where I added a button that lets you end the movement and make it undoable. So you can move behind a corner and you won't get any updated vision until you press finalize move. And that's because I really, really, really want the ability to be able to undo a movement thing. It's one of the biggest things for me in tactics games. Like when you can't undo a move action, it's so dog shit. Because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna ruin the entire encounter. Because it can. Like, it can literally tank your entire encounter. And then that's like, oh, okay. Gotta reload from the beginning. Just because there's no way to, like, undo a movement. It's either that, or you add confirmation to every move. Which is, like, okay. Depending on how you do it. If you make it like a double click, it can be okay. It's still prone to miss input, because it's very easy. Like if you accidentally like clicked in the first place, it's very easy that that's an accidental double click as well. Or if you like, you know. And having to like press some kind of button on the screen, like, are you sure you want to move here? That's bad too. That's too invasive. I've already been working for 4 hours, so I'm a little bit hooked. But basically, movement execution, It's only gonna happen once. Right? So I'm just thinking what kind of solutions would be good here. I kind of want to say because here we have position modifier list. But what if we have a temp position modifier? Like that. And then we're gonna say temp position modifier. And then when this is done, we're gonna say current turn dot unit dot temp position dot position modifier list dot add current turn dot unit dot position modifier dot temp position modifier. The position modifier list is a list of position modifiers. Wait, how does that work? Why did I do that? What was the reason I did that? Either way, let's do it like this. Public void add temp modifier to position list. Then we're gonna say position modifier list dot add this mean? Value. This only works. This is only gonna run the get, right? Like it's only gonna return this and then do add. What is this doing? Nothing. Yeah, I'm gonna change that, I think, somehow. Position modifier list dot add temp position modifier. So we need a position modifier. I feel like I did it for some reason when it comes to like referencing. But I genuinely don't know why I did this. This isn't doing anything, I think. I don't like this. I feel like this should be a function. Yeah, the reason I wanted them to be classes was so that I could reference it, like here, and then I could just delete it. So maybe that's what we need to do here. In movement execution, we need to say temp plus modifier equals new position modifier. And then here, no, here we say current turn unit dot position modifier list dot add temp plus modifier. And then down here, we're gonna say temp plus modifier dot position modifier. It's then handled like that. And then when this is done, We then have that there. I'm just writing notes for myself because there's too much going on. I can't remember between sessions anymore. Something like that. But yeah, that's a short stream today. I did more writing than I intended this morning, so that took up a lot of my energy. So I'm still trying to figure out how to balance writing and programming. Because I can't do programming for 4 hours and then do writing. Doesn't work. So it's like I have to do a little bit of writing and then do programming. And that can work. But yeah, that'll be that for now. My brain is too cooked to continue doing this right now. So I'll see you later. Bye-bye.